Right, Moon Knight, it's done. It's finished for the first season. I'm I'm really enjoying these Disney Plus Marvel shows. They've all been good so far. With the only real bad one being What If, and even What If had standout moments. Loki kind of but it was on such a high, and Tom Hiddleston is great, even if the thing that he's in is mediocre. I think everyone in that show does really well. And maybe the same can be said about Moon Knight. I'll get more into it later, but a lot of people are saying that this show's done. This show's, no more Moon Knight. Moon Knight's not going to be in anything ever again. But I don't see that. The show ends with a very obvious, this is what we're doing for season 2. So I don't see why they would tee up with if the show was cancelled, the after credit scene would be something that didn't have anything to do with the show or to do with Moon Knight as a character. It would be just, where is this leading next in the terms of the MCU, not where is this leading next in the terms of Moon Knight the character, because it very obviously shows this is what we're doing for season 2, and there's still more story here. Whether season 2 gets turned into a straight to Disney Plus movie instead of an actual season 2 of the show, whether it gets turned into a theatrically released movie is another thing to say, and whether Moon Knight's story is just something that's going to be, finished, or something that's going to be explored in a movie later on. That's another discussion entirely. But I personally feel like there is more to say. There is obviously more to say, because we've got other personalities to explore, as shown with that after credits stinger, which I'll talk about way at the end of the video. But I really enjoyed this. I feel like my enjoyment from this came from me being a really big Moon Knight fan in the first place, and the show changes a lot. The show changes more than a lot, and it probably tackles the things. In fact, it does tackle the things. Like Arthur Harrow is the actual villain in the show. Arthur Harrow is a very unknown character, even if you are a big comics fan. He was in like a few issues in the 80s, and that was really it. But yeah, Moon Knight doesn't really have a rogues gallery like Spider-Man does, like even like Captain America does. He's a very difficult character to turn into a show, so I feel like it's smart taking a lesser known character, and you can kind of Eternals him. You can kind of turn him into something that's not quite what the comics is. Because Arthur Harrow in the comics is just a scientist. He's just a guy who, is a bit crazy. And in this, he's like the avatar of Amit, which I'll get into later. It all culminates into a big CG fight. And I enjoyed the big CG fight because I'm a superhero fan. The superhero fights are what I watch these movies and watch these shows for. And all the other stuff is just gravy for me. And a lot of people are the other way around. A lot of people are like, these superhero movies and these superhero shows need to be deep. They need to make us think. Not every comic book is going to make you think. Not every comic book is going to make you say wow at the end of it. If you get a cool fight, and if you get the character, and if you get like something out of it, and I feel like it works. Like some MCU movies I've left feeling absolutely nothing, because I feel like they've either tried too hard to say something and to be something more than just a fun action superhero movie. And I feel like, or some of them have tried too hard to be a fun action superhero movie, and they've kind of gone away from having any depth at all. I feel like this is a good marriage of the two. A lot of the first half is more of getting to know Stephen Grant, getting to know Mark Spector, and getting to see their two, getting to see Oscar Isaac kind of act as kind of two characters in one, and it's really cool. And I feel like this solidifies Oscar Isaac as being a really good actor. I mean, whether he was before is I can't say, because I haven't seen him in much outside of X-Men Apocalypse and Star Wars. And, those two things don't really show off Oscar Isaac in the best way. I feel like maybe Dune. Dune is like the first thing that I watched Oscar Isaac in, and I was like, right, this guy can act. And then in this, having him play like two characters that are like dueling, and it's kind of like what Jeremy Johns said in one of his reviews, as he's been doing the individual episodes. He said that it was very reminiscent of when Willem Dafoe is talking in the mirror in Spider-Man 1. That kind of solidified him as like, he's really good at this one specific thing. He's really good at playing a crazy person. And when you see later on in the show, when you see Mark Spector and Stephen Grant go full on psycho, he does that really well. And I feel like that's where this show kind of deviates from the usual MCU formula. You never really see, outside of the Disney Plus shows, you never really see the heroes or the main characters get into a really, like, holy shit situation. Only really, like, in Infinity War, when, like, Thanos wins. Spoilers for Infinity War if you haven't seen it. The one of you that hasn't seen it. But, yeah, you don't really get that kind of how the fuck is our hero gonna win kind of thing. And it's refreshing to see that. It's refreshing to see that. And it's refreshing to see a main character, a hero in one of these shows that isn't heroic, that isn't necessarily a good guy. I mean, he is. Mark Spector is, at the end of the show, he is a good guy. And Stephen Grant is a good guy throughout the show. But at the start of the show, you're like, yep, he's a dickhead. That one is the nice one, he's the dickhead. And then as the whole, as the show progresses, you get this character development and everything, and as a show would. I feel like that's what makes Moon Knight work as a show, is that you do get that equal amount of time with each character. Arguably, you get more with Steven than you do with Mark, which is weird. I do like the change to how the suit works. So in this, it's not just the Mr. Knight suit is a different costume, because that's how it works in the comics. It's always Mark who is Moon Knight, and it's just like different costumes. It's just like any other character making a different costume for a different time, and a different writer coming in and being like, I think we should do this, and a different artist coming in and saying we should do this. It's never really as deep as the suit represents who is in control at that time. I don't think it's never really that, it's never really that complex in the, if it even is, if it even is complex, but it's never really like that in the comics, and I like that change for the show. It makes sense. It makes sense that, the British Stephen Grant would be in this prim and proper suit, and then it's a thing that I noticed later on, the Moon Knight suit, the actual comic book Moon Knight suit, the one that Mark Spector wears, it's bandaged like a mummy, and that's the Egyptian themes, and also he's come back from the dead, so of course this suit is going to look like a mummy. And I didn't even put two and two together until, watching the final episodes, because it's stuff like that that's cool, and stuff like that in, Marvel stuff in general that's cool. If there's stuff that I didn't like, I feel like the second half of the show goes off the rails a bit too much. I feel like the big CG fight is maybe a bit much. Every Moon Knight comic that I've read has been very grounded, and that's what I was worried about going into this show. I was worried that, are they going to ShangChi this? Are they going to make what should be a grounded character, what should be a, more boots on the ground, more Moon Knight always gets compared to Batman. I feel like with this, there's very few comparisons to Batman. Only the moon things that he throws are very similar to Batarangs. That's the only thing. And also in the new Batman movie, he gets the Batarangs from his chest, and Moon Knight gets the crescent moon things from his chest. That's the only similarity, is the projectiles. Everything else, there's no moon ship. Instead, they just make Moon Knight fly, which is, not a thing that he can do, to my knowledge. I didn't realise that Moon Knight was bulletproof. I didn't realise that if you stab him, he just doesn't feel it. Here's a thing. When Stephen Grant's in control, he can't get stabbed. Or he can get stabbed. That's the thing. He feels pain. He feels the pain. And if he gets stabbed when he's Stephen Grant, it demobilises him. But when he's Mark Spector, he can just get up and do it fine. But they're the same person. They're both, avatars of Konshu. It's not like when he changes to Stephen Grant, he just loses all of the powers. If they kind of explained that a little bit differently, or they were like, right, yeah, Konshu doesn't like you, so he didn't give you the invulnerability thing. You're not meant to have the powers, so you don't, until at the end of the show when Konshu realizes you need them. Maybe that, I kind of get that. And the thing with all of the gods being a part of the show, maybe that's a Moon Knight thing that's very old Moon Knight, and maybe this show is being taken from the really old Moon Knight runs. I don't see why they would do that. And maybe I just don't get where the really out there stuff came into this show. And I feel like the show, I like the characters, I like the interactions, and I like the interaction with Oscar Isaac interacting with himself. And I like the performance from Oscar Isaac. I feel like it's really good. Right, sorry about that. My phone storage went a bit haywire and it stopped filming. So I forgot where I left off. But the point that I think I was trying to make was I don't really like the direction that the show went in with the more mystical element, the more like the more not science fiction, but the more like what the fuck is going on stuff. I don't really like that. If you had it be more believable and more like actually reminiscent of like real multiple personality disorder, then that would probably have worked for me. And all of the multiple personality disorder stuff worked. The entire first half of the show worked. The latter half of the show, I feel like, goes a bit too far off the deep end for me. And that's a big thing for the MCU in general. They seem to be really against doing street level stuff. You know, outside of the Netflix shows, there's nothing in the MCU itself that's really street level. You know, even the closest thing that could be referred to as street level is like Ant-Man. And even then, Falcon had to show up, and he still goes to Avengers headquarters, and you know, but that's kind of the closest thing. And all of the characters that have, you know, were supposed to be street level, that should have been street level, you know, weren't. Like ShangChi should have been a street level kung fu movie, and turned into this like riding on the back of a dragon, 10 rings, everything. And like the 10 rings are being adapted into the comics, and they're being like embraced, and a lot of what that show did for the mythology of Shang-Chi is kind of being embraced by the comics. But that's a very MCU-ified or MCU-ification of what Shang-Chi is meant to be. Like, he's the master of kung fu. He's not the master of riding on the back of a dragon, you know. And yes, it's a representation of what is happening now in the MCU 1 year later, or not in the MCU, of what's happening now in the comics, but that's 1 year later, and that's like directly impacted from the film. And I like that, because what's going on in Shang-Chi at the moment is good, and I want to do a video on it because it's so much better than what the film was, and it's being handled so much better than what the film was as well. But I don't get this kind of like, oh no, it's got to be massive, it's got to be huge, it's got to be this big thing, for people to really know what's going on, for people to really get it. And like, oh, if it's too street level, if it's too boots on the ground, you know, there won't be that engagement, and they're worried that people are going to start looking at something like Moon Knight, and they're going to think it's going to be like the Netflix shows. And really, when you look at the Netflix shows, none of them really worked outside of Daredevil. Daredevil was like a gold standard, and nothing really else got there. There was stuff that I liked about Luke Cage, there was stuff that I liked about Iron Fist, there was stuff that I liked about the first season of Jessica Jones. But as a whole, Daredevil was the only show that got it right. And I think Marvel is afraid, first off, that the Netflix shows weren't meant to be a thing that were as big as they were, or especially Daredevil wasn't meant to be a thing that was as big as it was, and it wasn't meant to be this kind of, you know, oh my god, we'd love that, oh my god, that's the best thing ever. And I feel like maybe there's this kind of fear that they're never going to get there again, so they're just going to keep sticking to what they know, or what is now the kind of status quo of MCU stuff, and everything in the MCU has to be bigger than what happened before. And, like, what is the biggest thing that we can do? Oh, we're going to have two deities fight on top of a pyramid, and while Arthur Harrow, Moon Knight, and this other superhero that is, like, his wife that, you know, is getting divorced from him. You know, she becomes basically Wonder Woman at the end of Wonder Woman 1984 when she's in the gold armor. It's basically the same costume again. And as entertaining as that final episode is, as entertaining as that final fight is, it's way too out there for Moon Knight. Like it's only recently that Konshu even, you know, even like showed what he looked like to Mark. And this show is just, oh yeah, he knows, and he's showing himself to everyone now, and everyone knows what Konshu looks like, and he's fucking terrifying. You know, and you know, as he should be, but the image of Konshu is as out there as this show should have gone. And this show going to, like, alligator gods and, like, Anubis and, you know, even going to Cairo. I feel like the show could have gone to Cairo for, like, an episode, and that could have still been street level. But, you know, it just became too much for me personally. And, you know, a lot of people may like this. A lot of people may like the big CG fight at the end. Again, it's a good fight. It's well, like, animated, because it's not really choreographed. These, like, action sequences in superhero movies aren't really choreographed anymore. I mean, the most choreography was probably the fucking things, the bus fight in ShangChi. That's probably the last time there was actual choreography in one of these shows, or probably something in Falcon and Winter Soldier. But, you know, big sky fight is big sky fight, and that's kind of the long and short of it. I enjoyed Moon Knight. I'm excited to see what they do with this character next. It didn't lead to what I wanted it to lead to, which was the fucking, what is it? Midnight Suns. It didn't lead to Midnight Suns. Blade isn't in this. Ghost Rider isn't in this. And I think that was me. That doesn't take away from the show at all, because that was my personal expectation. And having the expectation that Blade was going to show up at the end of this was like that what if kind of moment, that kind of, oh, that would be cool, but I don't expect it to happen kind of thing. I was like, oh, that would be cool. I would really like Blade to be in, like, an after credit scene after this, especially since Blade is going to be getting his own movie soon, and he was at the end of Eternals, so it would have been cool for him to be in this, but he wasn't. Ghost Rider, that was more of a, yeah, that's not going to happen, but it'd be fucking cool if it did. But it's not going to happen, but it'd be fucking cool, wouldn't it? It would be. Yeah, so I enjoyed Moon Knight a lot. It was a lot funnier than I thought it was going to be. Stephen Grant was like most of the levity in this show. And then the fucking hippopotamus, which you all know about the hippopotamus by now. Fat and dangerous. Yeah, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Moon Knight as a show. I enjoyed it for what it was. I enjoyed the show that it was. I just wish that we got this instead of maybe Punisher. Or we got this instead of Defenders, maybe. If they pushed Defenders back a bit, gave everyone in that, like, Marvel Netflix universe an extra season, wait until everyone was in season 2, and then do Defenders, and, you know, throw Moon Knight onto that. I would have liked a slightly lower budget, more street level kind of Moon Knight show. But we're not going to get that with the MCU now. We're not going to get street level with the MCU anymore. But I like what we have got. I like what we have. You know, it's still good. It's still very entertaining. It's still a very entertaining show. It's just, I wanted more of the, like, realistic crazy rather than the mystical crazy fucking hippopotamus everywhere, literally going to the afterlife and then coming back, and, you know, big Titan Konshu versus big Titan alligator woman fight. I just wish there was less of that, more of Moon Knight doing Moon Knight. Because really, the actual Moon Knight suit isn't in very much of this show at all. I think we get more screen time with the Mr. Knight suit than we do the Moon Knight suit, which is cool. That's a nice design. I like that it's got the seam down the bottom on the mask. That's really cool. But, you know, I would have really liked to see the actual Moon Knight suit more, because that's a cool suit as well. Like I said, looks like a mummy, so that's thematic and really cool, and a really cool design choice. And whoever did the costume design for this show should have a massive props for that, because that's smart, that's clever, you know. I'll see you guys in the next video. If you enjoyed this, let me know. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Come on over to my Twitch. I stream every day at around 9 PM. It's usually 9:30 because, you know, it takes about half an hour to set up. But I will see you guys in the next video. See you guys start a stream. Base.